Hey everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Good evening, Rush Nation. It is Thursday night. There is no stocks. You've got me yet again, but don't worry. I do have an amazing guest. If you're watching this on the YouTube, you already know who it is, or you've actually read the title again. You'd probably already know who it is. But before I get into the introduction, just want to update everyone. Thank you so much for all the responses to the shows we've done across the week. And yes, I want to thank everybody for not laying into me too much for my waiver wire video that I posted. So for context, for those of you that are listening and don't understand this, on Monday I did a show for Pro Football Network, Fantasy Football, and then I did our waiver wire show. And I alluded to the fact that Nick Chubb is not the most reliable back. He is susceptible to injury. I said he's not. I think the words I used were not the most durable back. And then in Monday Night Football, some 7 hours later, he gets a horrific injury. It's obviously not what I meant, that something like that would happen. And I'm not from the future. So it's not like I knew that was coming. Obviously, I felt very terrible Tuesday and stayed very quiet because I don't want people to think that I was hoping for an injury like that. And some people would interpret it like that. But that was obviously not the case. If you'd be listening to the show, I'd like to think that you wouldn't think so. But I wanted to just put that out there, that obviously it was a really unfortunate injury to see Nick Chubb go down. My thoughts and prayers are with him and his family, and hope he is able to return next season and demonstrate what a great back he is. But yeah, just to clarify that if you watched it or listened to it after the injury, I wasn't making light of the injury because it was recorded before. And if you were watching it before and knew the context, it wasn't me trying to suggest that something like that was going to happen, because how and why would I? It was just the fact that we're looking at potential edges in fantasy football, and Jerome Ford is an edge. So I just wanted to clarify that at the top of the show. But just getting into this now. So one of my favorite people on Twitter, or X, or Elon Musk's playground, or whatever we're calling it these days, very good friend of mine, has written an absolutely phenomenal book. I hope most of you have bought this, The American Football Revolution. He is also on the Nat Coombs podcast. He's on TalkSport. He's about everywhere in the community at the moment. It's Ben Issacs. Welcome back. Hat-trick appearance for the 5 Yard Rush. How are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic, Murph. I'm doing really well. And it's interesting hearing you clarify those Nick Chubb comments, because in the book, where there's the chapter on the importance of fantasy football in the growth of the sport over here, I talk about how, especially on social media, people keep the receipts when they're listening to fantasy experts such as yourself, and it's a very instant thing that if you say someone's going to do well or drop this person this week and you're wrong, people are not shy about letting you know that. So I've always got so much time for people like yourself who will put their head above the parapet and say, look, here's what I think, here's what it's based on. But you always know that someone will be looking to, really get you in the neck if you get it wrong.
Yeah, I don't necessarily mind the getting it wrong part, because we're human, right? And to be honest, if you're getting it right 65% of the time, you're 15% above the house. You're having a great time. Like, at the end of the day, I make calls that are bold, and some of them work out and some of them don't. But I play, and I give the advice that I take myself. So I play the game to win. And you've got to take risks, especially if you have a squad that isn't in a position where it can win right now. Because the way I look at it is, if your squad isn't quite ready to win, you're pushing all in. If it doesn't work, you've lost nothing, because you weren't going to win anyway. And that's how I kind of view it. So, and I never mind when people say to me, and I hear a lot more. Actually, I'm quite lucky. I think in the UK community, I would say this now, people are more thankful for the good advice you give than the bad advice or the advice that doesn't work. But I think those that perhaps those that are loudest are the ones that complain about the stuff that went wrong. So they're the ones that will go out in the open and shout about how I got it wrong, Jack Humphrey got it wrong, someone else got it wrong, Rich Cooling got it wrong, whoever. But the people that you do well, they'll privately message you and say, thank you so much. That call was valuable. I won my week. I won my league, whatever it is. So it's like the public don't get to see the good stuff. They see the negative stuff. But actually, I get far more positive interactivity from people. It's just more private, which is actually how I prefer it, to be honest, because I'm not one for trying to victory lap. And yeah, for me, it's just I don't want comments to be misinterpreted. So I didn't want my comments on Monday about Nick Chubb to be seen as wanting to someone saying Mark, my friend Mark, saying Jack never gets it wrong. Well, not at the moment. He landed nearly $3,000 from the bookies on Sunday night. So
I think he's going to be the first UK owner of an NFL franchise just on his winnings.
He's going to win the Millie Maker, and then he won't be here, will he? Because if he wins that money, he's off. He's going somewhere else.
Yeah, he's gone.
But yeah, I just think for me, and I think you're the same, especially as someone who writes a lot, you just don't want your comments to be taken out of context. And I don't want people to think I want an injury to a player, and that's why I clarified this at the top, because I don't want people to think that that's why.
Or that you're being so flippant that you're looking at these people's lives and careers as simply numbers in a league. Now, it's a game. People enjoy fantasy football because it's a game that takes skill, brain work, knowledge, allows you to enjoy the games more. And yes, you might be thinking, I hope that quarterback has a bad game against me, and that's all fine. But the idea of kind of people getting angry at a player because they've got injured or wishing an injury on someone is obviously, there are some people who will feel that way because, some people are crazy enough. So I definitely know where you're coming from, because you don't want to be so flippant that like, oh yeah, that guy's not very durable, when he's got such a serious injury, that the idea that you're kind of brushing it away simply like, well, I don't care about the human cost of this. This is simply about me saying, well, you can't trust players like that.
Yeah, and that's it. And I think we have to talk about this all the time in the context of fantasy football. That we're always thinking about the edge. Sorry, my mic has just gone. I think some of my tech is still very wet.
I'm not sure your tech is very durable.
You can't hear me. Hold on.
I can hear you. I can hear.
Right. Can you hear me now?
I could always hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Well, I can't hear anything. Oh, my word. I'm literally having the worst day ever here. I'm so sorry. Okay, I still can't hear Ben.
I'm going to keep talking.
Right.
I'm going to keep talking until you can hear me.
I can't hear Ben, so this audio, I'm really sorry if you're on the live stream. I'm going to give this one more go. I think
if you're on the live stream, you can hear me.
Very wet last night, and it's playing havoc.
This is the perils of live streaming. Well, there you go, Mark. You can hear us both, but I guess if Murph can't hear my words of wisdom, then we've got a problem.
No, I can now. We're sorted.
Yes, there we go.
I don't know what happened there. It's just one of those crazy. Well, I know what happened. So I've got I've got a Mac, and I was at the game last night. I got very wet, and some of my technology got wet, so I think it's got water gremlins. But that's fine. I can hear everything now, so it's all good. Yes, and I've got a failsafe, so now the speakers on here are working, so we're all good. Yes. So anyway, let's talk about we talked a lot about. Let's talk about the book, because this is a phenomenal book. I've read it, and I do you know what I love about this book is it's about real people and real fans. So it's not theory based. It's not. I mean, there's a lot of history in it, but it's through the eyes of real people, real fanatics. And I think what I love is you've captured the passion of real fans. Tell us why you wrote this book. Like, how did it come up as a concept? How did you end up writing it and getting it to publication?
Well, I'm really glad that you've said what you said in terms of kind of the way it came across, for reasons that will become clear. So for ages, I've just been sick of the fact that I didn't ever feel that fans in the UK community got enough credit for the growth of the sport over here. People want to give credit to the broadcasters, give credit to NFL UK, give credit to the NFL's head office for bringing the games over and all this. But what about the people who are actually staying up late to watch the games, that are buying Game Pass, that are meeting new people in fantasy leagues and just getting more and more people involved, the people who are buying the tickets to the games? What about all of them? What about those hundreds of thousands of people that have made this sport really big, while sponsors and broadcasters want to kind of pat themselves on the back for what a great job that they've done? What about the sort of people who are listening to this podcast, right? So I'd been kicking around ideas of what can I do to really kind of write a love letter to the fans that have made this sport what it is in this country. And I thought, okay, well, no one wants to write about UK fans. Like there are plenty of books about kind of like fan communities and stuff in America and all this, but no one wants to write about UK fans. So I thought, okay, well, I can do this, and I can write a history of NFL fandom in the UK. And the more I thought about it, I thought, I don't know how interesting it's going to be. And then I woke up one morning and I thought, right, what if instead of it simply being a chronological history from 82, because that's what I'm using as my starting point. 82, when Channel 4 first launched and it was showing the NFL, that I feel is the actual birth of NFL fandom. So I thought, instead of it being simply a chronological history, what if each chapter, instead of simply being an era, it's a person who represents that era? Their story sums up that era. It's not like, oh, here's the most important person from that era. It's, here's someone whose story helps me tell the wider story, and it will all fit together. So once I had that concept of, right, every chapter is a single person telling their story, and it all fits together from 82 to 2022, I then thought, okay, well, let me take this to market. Let me see who's interested. And the first company I wanted to approach was Pitch Publishing, who are the UK's biggest independent sport publisher. They'd already published 2 books about American football, which kind of marks them out as unique, because most publishers are not interested in UK books about the NFL. So I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna send them a pitch, and at worst they'll say no, and I'll see if I can get some good feedback, so that for the next publisher I pitch it to, I'll have it be in a stronger position. But they got back to me instantly with some questions, and how about this? How about this? I had a terrible title initially. I think it was something like Wrong Side of the Pond, and they said, what about the American Football Revolution? And I was like, yeah, that is a million times better. Thank you. So I'm not even going to take credit for what is a brilliant title, because I'm not that sort of person. So they came up with the title, and I emailed them one morning, and by that night I had a contract. And I don't think it usually works that quickly. It just happened to work that quickly in these circumstances. So then I had, just over a year to write it, and that was the deadline I set myself, which was all fine. And it was a matter of organizing all those interviews with the different people. And not that you asked, Murph, but here's how I wrote them. Right now, this was kind of like drove me a little bit crazy in terms of my time management, because there were certain points where I could have done 3 interviews in a week, and I can have those banked, and I can then write them when I get time. I felt I couldn't do that, because when I would do an interview, when I did the first one, I realized that I needed to finish writing that chapter, live in that person's life, live in the chapter until I had completely finished that chapter. I couldn't split time with another fan. My focus had to be entirely on that one fan. At that point, they were the most important person in the whole community to me, that one person. So I would do one and I'd try and have the next one set up, because each one would take a few weeks to write. I wanted it to be full of their words. It's their story, but it always had to kind of tell the full story of the chronological history of the fandom. And it just meant that I felt I was so entrenched in those people's lives for that period. It was very weird saying goodbye when it was like, okay, that chapter's finished, I'm now on to the next one.
I love that though, because I think it comes across that it's not just you sat down with this person, you chatted for like half an hour or however long it was, and then you just sort of took the best bits away and then wrote about it. It was as you described, you fully immersed into it, especially when you're talking about people that have been fans for a very long time. So you talk about, I'm not going to spoil the whole book, but you talk about fans who, one fan in particular who is quite well known in terms of from a perspective, especially internationally. In fact, the owner of the team that he supports even knew who he was and got him involved. And there's really cool things. And again, I don't want to spoil it because then I want people to buy this book, right? But it's phenomenal about how people really get into their teams and dress up and form micro communities off the back of their fandom and common interest, not just the team, but of other things that spirit into that. And you can tell that you just, like you say, you lived that life and you lived that experience, and you used a lot of their words to tell the story. And the one thing that comes across all the way through is passion, commitment, and community. They're like the words that constantly kept jumping out, because no matter what each person was talking about, they weren't doing it just for themselves. It was always about other people. Every single person in this book that you speak to is talking about other people they've met, other people that they harness. And that's what people don't understand, is that the NFL fans are a community, or they're maybe micro communities that come up to build one big community.
I genuinely, right? Genuinely, this will sound like hyperbole, right? But genuinely, when you were saying those things about the passion and community, I got chills, because it was only after the book came out, and I've obviously read the book over and over many times because I had to. It was only when the book came out and I got the response to it that I realized how important it was to show the community that everyone who was a part of this book is doing things to uplift the community, that it was about other people. Every person, their focus was other people. And I didn't know that at the time when I was writing it. It was only afterwards that I started to, like, I'm not saying it was off the back of this book, but I did have people like send me messages about this, some people kind of tweeting openly about it and kind of asking me that the idea of the quote unquote real fan and the influencers and all this sort of stuff. And some people had said to me like, "Oh, I'd be interested in your book, but is it full of influencers?" And I was like, I mean, I don't think. I mean, there's one person in the book who says, "I do not consider myself an influencer." And the more I've spoken to that person, I think that is absolutely right, because I think a lot of people who, and forgive me if I'm going off on a tangent, but this is kind of this I think is a burning issue in the community right now, that I think there are community leaders, right? Whether they know they are, whether that's a title they would want to give themselves. Like Murph, you are a community leader, right? Whether you like it or not, people, that's how they would view you. Whether they would use that phrase or not is a different matter, but that's what you are. And there are obviously, in any sort of fandom, there are people who would look to take from the community more than they put in. What can I get out of this? What's the benefit to me? Rather than everyone who ended up in the book was the other way.
100%.
What can I do? Like, how can I help other people? And it wasn't like at the time I thought, oh, these are the people I need to seek out. I just wanted to speak to people who I felt would represent a small part of history in the best way. And it happened to be that everybody I spoke to fulfilled that criteria. And I think there is a wider discussion going on now about kind of NFL fandom and the actual community, because it is a community. It is a genuine, living, breathing community. It's not just a group of people with a shared interest. It is a community, and everybody in the book is not just an important part of that community, but because it isn't all like people who you're going to know and be like, oh yeah, it's that person from Twitter.
No,
it isn't necessarily like that.
no,
So
absolutely.
these are just, some people are well known, some people are not well known, but everyone's story is just as important, and everybody is such a vital part of that community because they want to keep giving back. And I salute everybody who does that. And like, Murph, you are fantastic at that. I mean, you're mentioned in the book as one of kind of like having the greatest fantasy operation in the UK. Like, you are the gold standard. And those aren't my words. It was very great. It was very nice to hear someone within the fantasy community say that about you. So it's been really interesting because the book's been out, I think it's a month today, in fact. And the conversations that have sprung up about it have been really enlightening. And I hope it leads to more conversations of what it means to be within the community. And I hope it leads to other people wanting to write about their fandom, whether it's a blog, or whether it's starting a podcast to talk about those things, or whether it's someone deciding, okay, like, Ben's written this book that is a broad history of UK NFL fandom. I want to go down a very specific niche because that's what I'm super passionate about, and that's what I want to write about. I hope that this leads to more people writing and creating content for the community, not simply because they think they can make a quick buck or they can get famous and use it as a stepping stone. This community is not a stepping stone. I'm saying that now.
No,
okay?
you're absolutely right, and it shouldn't be. And thanks for the kind words. I don't know. I think the common theme between everyone, and it resonates with me a lot with everybody in this book, and we all share a lot in common. But I think none of us want to profit or benefit from it, financially, and again, you've got people who talk about this, that everything they do, they fund out their own pocket. They don't take, people who wrote like fan magazines or like newszines, or and again, I'm not going to spoil it, but was all funded, for their love, their passion, because what they're getting out of it, the same way as what I get out of this, is meeting people. You meet people with a common interest, with a common love and passion of something, and that's enough. If I meet, and I'm lucky enough through this medium to have met hundreds of people who are genuine friends now. There's some great people in our community who now do a fantasy conference every year, which has been a pleasure of being able to speak both years. And now this fantasy community is now meeting. And, when we started this podcast 6 and a bit years ago, Stocks and I, my mission was purely to stop people having to join a random NFL.com league with no friends because they didn't have enough people to form a league. That was it. That was the whole point of this, was if we can just connect people to play fantasy football so that they're playing with real people and getting a real fantasy football experience, and no one ever has to join a random NFL.com league again in the UK, my work's done. I'll die a happy man, because that's fantasy football is about friends. It's about playing with real people. It's about bragging rights. It's about banter. It's about having a laugh. That's the whole point of it. You can't have a laugh if you're playing robots. It doesn't work. It's not a video game. You don't get the same level of enjoyment. And I think
you'll never be able to know. I'm just sorry, you'll
No.
never be able to know how many people you have connected. How many? Because like there will be people who you've helped introduce to other people to play in a league together that will have become best friends. They'll become inseparable. That are texting each other as soon as they get up in the morning, talking about the previous night's game or whatever. Right? People such as you, and there's people in the book that this applies to just as well, have changed people's lives, because bringing people together is rather than like, oh, I'm gonna get some cool job out of all of this. Bringing people together really actually changes people's lives, right? There might be people out there who genuinely are really lonely. They've got particular interests. They feel a little bit isolated because they haven't got friends around them who are interested in the same things. And all of a sudden, they get to join a fantasy league, meet those people, and everything changes. Like the impact that it can have on our niche sort of interest in this country, bringing people together, what that does for people and mental health is, it can't be measured. You'd never be able to find out. And there's no amount of money that can replicate how good it can feel to know that you have helped bring people together. And I'm sure people are thinking, oh, I don't know, what £1 billion might do that. £1 billion probably would make you happy, right? I'm not going to say it wouldn't make you happy. It probably would make you happy. You could do all sorts of things and not have to worry about certain things, but it wouldn't necessarily give you that sense of satisfaction of knowing that you've done the right thing. They're very different feelings. And knowing that you've been doing the right thing and helping people and bringing people together through a love of a game and forging friendships, you can't put a price on that.
No, and I think really we're quite blessed, and I think this community is quite blessed, because when it got to COVID and the world shut down basically for 18 months, you couldn't see loved ones. That was when I saw the community at its absolute best, because that was when everybody pulled in, everybody connected with everybody. Everybody was saying it's okay to feel isolated. It's okay to feel like you want to just reach out. And the amount of people I saw who said, hey, if you're struggling, here's my mobile number, here's my Twitter account open, drop me a DM, drop me a message, give me a call. And I saw that from literally thousands of people in our community who were saying, if you're struggling, I'm here. Let's just talk football. Let's just connect. Let's find a way. And the ingenious ways in which people attempted to make connections. I know one of the people in the book, Liz, she did loads of things during COVID, online virtual events and things like that. And I think that's why it's amazing. When I do a lot of stuff with American fantasy football analysts, fans, and they ask me like, how'd you get into the game, and go through all that. And my journey is very different to everybody else's because I lived there for so long. But I say to them, it's like, I try and explain the fan experience over here, and they don't get it because they don't see it's a different type of passion. With American fans, I feel that their passion is come from birthright. It's come from their family. Most NFL fans support the team that their parents support, or support where they're from, or a combination of the two. And that is 95% of fans in the NFL. It's the same way that all college fans are where they went to college. And in fact, some of them go to college and follow in the family lineage. There's people that I went to school with, people who were 9 generations University of Florida. 9 generations of the same family, all going to the same school, because they're Florida Gator families. That's how they identify. We are a Florida Gator family. You can't go to any other school. You go to Florida. That's what you do. And that is American fandom. So here it's special because you have to choose a team, because you're not from any of those places. And a lot of people choose Miami because of it's, in Orlando, or it's in Florida. A lot of people go to Florida. But a lot of people choose really random teams. It's my favorite thing of asking anybody in the community is, how do you get to support your name? How do you get to support your team? Because there's some great stories in that. You could write an entire book on just how fans pick their teams. Because
I know.
There you go. I'm pitching your next book idea.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people don't get is we're passionate not just because of the fact that we love the sport and we're engrossed in it, but we've built our own community because we don't have a local community. We don't have a national team that we fight as much as they try to put the Jags down people's throats, and the other thing, and this came up in the book, I think briefly, was nobody wants a team here.
No, I don't think they do.
Nobody wants a team. Everyone's like, I speak to Americans all the time. They're like, oh yeah, so when are you going to get your own NFL franchise? And we're like, we hope never.
Yeah.
Because no one would want that. Like, I think that's how you kill the sport in this country, is if you had a UK franchise. I don't think that's what people want. I think people got an appetite for it.
I mean, like, so if somebody's there living in Gainesville, right, they know that they can go to any sports bar at any time when there's a Gators game on, and they're going to be surrounded by fellow fans who they've got something in common with. Whereas there might be NFL fans in your street. I know there's a Ravens fan in my street, but like, you're not. It's as a Chicago Bears fan, I'm not going to be like, oh well, of course I'm going to be surrounded by Chicago Bears, and I'm going to step out and I can just chat to people about this. So we're all mixed up in that you it's impossible to just be like, oh no, well, I only really communicate with fans of my team, because you'd have a very weird life in the UK if that's how you did it. You know, that you've really opted out of it, because we're an absolute mixture. We've got absolutely everything. So we don't have that kind of that home media experience of like, okay, well, the local radio station, the local paper, all that sort of stuff, you're surrounded by it. We don't have that. We are a bit of everything. And the whole thing about the Jags. Now, I think this is the thing, right? And in one of the chapters, somebody says that there's a lot of criticism of the NFL UK Twitter channel, but you need to remember it's not for you. If you're already a knowledgeable fan of the sport, that Twitter account is not for you. Now, that's not to say it's completely unjustified to get annoyed by certain things that they get wrong or whatever, but it's not aimed at you. In the same way, if you're like, oh, I love Succession and my child loves watching Bluey and I don't like watching Bluey, that's fine, because it's not for you. You know, I know that Bluey is highly acclaimed, whereas NFL UK Twitter
channel is phenomenal. I watch it with my son all the time. It's phenomenal.
With my daughter being 12 now, that I can't even. It's so far removed that all those programs are. I've gone past them. So the idea of a franchise over here, I think that's the idea of people who are thinking, what about the people who aren't currently fans? That if we put a team in London, where people will be like, oh, I want to support a London team, because the people who are already fans, that idea, it's not for you. It's for the other people, because we're all in it now. We're all spending the money. We're spending our time. We're buying Game Pass and then moaning about it and all that sort of stuff. We're already in. But the next lot, they're not in there yet. And if the NFL thinks, okay, well, the only way to make sure that we get another generation is international expansion, then, well, that's what can happen.
I don't think they will. I really don't.
No, I don't think they will either, but that would be the logic.
But I see NFL Europe coming back.
I mean,
the developmental league, I totally see that coming back now.
I would love it. Like that XFL, USFL merger that is apparently on the cards, and it won't take either of those names. I'm not saying that they're going to, set up in Europe, maybe work with the European League of Football, but how amazing would that be?
Oh yeah, and I think we're ready for it now. I think we're in a state now where it'd be appreciated that people would go. I think if we had, and they're starting to do, there is a European league. The Rainfire are going, and there's one in Spain, and I think if the NFL was smart and got that on board, because there were some phenomenal players that came from NFL Europe. Kurt Warner played here. Brad Johnson played here. Quite a number of players went on to play in the NFL. It is a good, and the NFL has shown, especially with the lack of preseason. I mean, week one, I don't, we'll get into some proper football talk, I suppose, in a second, before we let you go. But in terms of, I found week one this year was poorer because of the lack of preseason. I felt the teams were very conservative. I felt that there was a lot of disconnection. There was a lot of this feeling of ring rust. And, I definitely felt that the defenses were on top in week 1. Week 2, a bit more of a bounce back. We started to see more offensive plays, more of what we're kind of accustomed to. I'm not saying it was less entertaining because you had a lot of close games as a result of the defensive struggles, but I found a lot of the play calling was very safe, lack of risks. And I think if you have this developmental league, you can actually try these new concepts and get players playing most of the year round, potentially, except for the stars, and then be able to do something of that. I think that would be the way to go, but I'm not Commissioner Goodell. So.
No, you're not. You're not commissioning the NFL just yet. I would. You'd have my vote. I don't believe it comes to a vote, or at least not a vote that I'm going to be involved in. But yeah, I think it'd be. I think it'd be wonderful. Yeah, and of course there are some chapters about NFL Europe / the World League.
Yeah.
In the book, which were highly entertaining. It meant that I kept getting distracted and kind of watching old Monarchs and Claymores games on YouTube. And I'd totally forgotten that a very famous and influential sports broadcaster was involved in the Monarchs TV show on Channel 4. Read the book and you'll find out who.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, make sure you buy this book. It's on Amazon. It's on all good retailers. Buy it today. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes. Please do. Not just to support Ben, although that is a perfectly good and valid reason, and you definitely should. But it just captures the essence of what fandom in the UK is about. And there isn't a book like this. There just isn't. Pitch, as you said, they bought out other NFL books. One of them, again, by a good friend of mine who writes for the Mirror, and I read that, and it captures all the different games and the history of NFL games here. Phenomenal book, but this captures people, and every person in the community who plays in a fantasy football league, listens to a podcast, knows someone in the community will really appreciate this book. So please go and buy it. I promise you, and I'm not just saying this because Ben's here, I promise you will enjoy it. I'm not going to offer a money back guarantee. I'm not loaded. But I promise you will enjoy it. If I had the money, I certainly would. Let's talk a little bit. We've got just under 10 minutes here about week 2. Who caught your eye from a player perspective? We'll leave the Bears out of it because I know it's a bit of a sore subject right now. But
it's a very sore subject, yeah. I always enjoy looking at those younger players who are new to the league and look like they're starting to get a foothold. So I really liked what I saw from Sky Moore. And I think he can be a really big part of what the Chiefs do going forward. Obviously, they're in an interesting situation. It feels like that game in week 1 was pretty dreadful from an offensive point of view, and they couldn't seem to get anyone involved. And obviously, there were issues with Kadarius Toney, but Sky Moore, it was one of the key reasons that the Chiefs beat the Jags. I think he's probably going to have a very good game against the Bears this week. And in fact, I'm gonna stick with that game because there's another player that I've enjoyed seeing in his kind of brief appearances is Roschon Johnson of the Bears, who I think is going to be, maybe not a superstar, but one of those very reliable backs. I think he's looked better than Khalil Herbert. He was fantastic at Texas, and I think he's someone that is just going to get a lot more carries. I really enjoyed watching him. I think he's a lot of fun, and someone who was a quarterback who has really that I'm really pleased for, because I'm sick of people deciding someone is a bust or headed to Canton based on watching Red Zone, rather than watching games. Now, if you want to watch Red Zone, that's absolutely fine. It's an amazing product, but the one thing it doesn't give you is any real idea about players and how their careers are progressing. So Baker Mayfield, who was drafted into a pretty dysfunctional organization, he did make plenty of mistakes, not just as a rookie, but he's someone who, like when he was in college, he bounced around. He ended up being a walk on at Oklahoma, having an incredible career in Oklahoma. But he was kind of a guy that nobody had wanted, and then turned into a number 1 overall pick, which perhaps was not really justified. So that kind of hype just put a lot of pressure on him, and now he's in a good situation. He's on a team in Tampa Bay where the defense can do a lot of the heavy lifting, can give him some short fields, and he can just be efficient and show the sort of things that he did at Oklahoma. So I've really enjoyed watching his progression this season. I really hope his career takes off now. I don't see why he can't be the starter in Tampa Bay in the medium term. I don't think this has to be, okay, well, he's a stopgap until next season. I think he could show enough this year to be like, okay, we've got our quarterback. So I hope Bucs fans look after him, because I think he deserves a bit of slack.
Well, I think Bucs fans in general are more positive on him than most. I haven't been. The biggest enemy to Baker Mayfield is Baker Mayfield, and for
100%.
me, personality-wise, he's very similar to Jameis Winston. Very, very, very similar to Jameis Winston, in the sense of Jameis Winston was someone who thought he was Superman. So he believed he had to win games on his own. And he had this mentality of, if I don't make the play, we don't win. And Baker Mayfield has a touch of that. And he needs that coached out of him. He needs to understand that he is part of a team. And this is where Tom Brady doesn't get enough recognition for me. Tom Brady, everyone always thinks that Tom Brady is this guy, this enigma of, it's all about him. It's the Tom Brady show. And actually, he's the first person to try and pass on the credit to the guys. If you ever watch any of his old interviews, it's so-and-so made a phenomenal catch, or so-and-so ran a great route, or so-and-so made a big play. And he's always passing the praise around the team. And, and we talk about his contract situation all the time. He never took the big money, always made sure that other guys got paid. He knew he backed himself to be a serial winner and make it on the back end. Baker Mayfield, and I saw a touch of this against the Bears, he buys into the press. So he wins angry runs. And this was the only thing about his performance on Sunday I didn't like. I think he has exceeded all expectations in the first 2 games. It is only 2 games, and I caveat that. When he's won angry runs, he's got the scepter, and all of a sudden he's getting the praise and the t-shirt. And listen, careers are short. You should lap up the successes. You don't get enough of them. And Baker Mayfield hasn't had enough of them. But at the same point, what did he try and do on Sunday quite a few times? Try and take off and run with the ball when there was a pass that was a better option. And it's that's his Achilles heel. That is where he's going to not fulfill all of his potential, because if he tries and thinks that he's Superman, that he is the show, that he is the star, it will fall apart, because he doesn't have enough combination of gravitas and elite skill to carry that when it doesn't go well. And that's his issue. But he has played very well. Completion percentage very high. He's made some big plays. The biggest thing for him, not turn the football over. At no point has he looked like he's going to turn the football over. He's not made that many bad passes. If he has, he's always thrown him in a position where the defender can't catch. He's not in a situation where the ball looks like it's going to get intercepted. If it's a miss, it's a miss out wide. It's a miss out to the byline. It doesn't matter. And I think that's the maturity. He definitely looks more mature. And I think it's someone who understands the situation of, this is his last chance. Roschon Johnson, I'm 100% on board. I talked about him all week. Talked about him last week. Talked about him the week before. Roschon Johnson is going to be the starting back for the Bears. Might not be this week, but it will be in the next couple of weeks. Khalil Herbert is not the guy. He's not the guy. And it's not a slight on his talent. He's going to have a role. But Khalil Herbert, and I've said this time and time again, and people will say, well, you've said this before, Murph. when David Montgomery left, they went and got Donta Foreman, who was the most similar back you can get to David Montgomery in free agency. And then they went and drafted the guy. So it showed they didn't have complete confidence that Herbert was going to be the guy they needed him, like the 1A in this offense. Very good 1B back. One of the better 1B backs in the league. But Roschon Johnson's an alpha. He's going to take the majority of the way. And as you say, he's special. He's talented. He should be a player that should be picked up. His usage, his utilization, I'm tracking it every week, is going up and up. So I looked at it this week. I'm just going to pull the number up. He, 42% of snaps, which was more than week one. A lot of that was because of the Donta Foreman healthy scratch. But again, he's getting the high value touches. He's getting a good amount of volume. Don't worry about the box score against the Bucs. The Bucs have one of the two best run defenses in the league. Doesn't matter. But the usage is where it's all going right. So I think Roschon does you right. And Sky Moore, I agree with you. The one thing I'm worried about Sky Moore is he runs a lot of routes that he doesn't get targeted on. So it says to me he's not a high read in that offense. Now he can be, but looking at it, he's still about the third or fourth read. So when he's making plays, he's not probably the intended target on that route. They've gone to Kelsey, they can't get him open. They've gone to Kadarius Toney, he doesn't in a good situation. Oh, but Sky Moore's there. Okay, he's in space. And it's good because the more that he does that, he'll move up that look chart. But he's only getting looked at 12 out of every 100 routes on average, which isn't anywhere near enough. It needs to be in that sort of 20 to 30 range. But it will happen for him, I'm sure, because he's got amazing talent.
And I think he's someone who will prove to be a safe pair of hands, in that offense. And he's a lot of fun. And I don't completely trust Kadarius Toney. And that I've said that since the day he was drafted. Not that he was a terrible player, but again, drafted too high. And I don't think anyone could have expected to be. I mean, he had as bad a day as any skill position player will have that you'll ever see, against the Lions. But that sort of thing's an aberration. I think really it's the fact that he's just not quite as crisp as I would like to see. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see the version of Kadarius Toney that we saw in Gainesville. A lot of mentions of Gainesville and the Gators here.
I know. Well, that's what happens when I'm around, unfortunately. But
yeah.
And people like me weren't overly high on him in Gainesville. I thought he was a good player. Again, when he went, was it 20, 25 in the draft? You're like,
something like that.
That was spicy. That was punchy.
Yeah.
But hey, that's what happens. But look, I know you got to get out of here, man. Tell everyone where they can find you if they don't already follow you, and if they've got questions about the book or want to just say thanks for writing the book. Where can everybody find you and interact with you and follow your good work as well?
Thank you. Well, I'm mostly on Twitter /X, whatever you want to call it. I am Tweets from Ben. I'm not going to go and change that to Posts from Ben or whatever Elon Musk is telling us tweets are called now. It is just Tweets from Ben. Not super active on Instagram, but you can find me at Ben Issacs. That's BENISAACS. And you can buy the book everywhere. But I would say if you really want to do me a solid and help other people get their books published, if they want to write about the NFL and they're from the UK, please leave a review on Amazon. There is nothing that does more for a book's visibility than reviews on Amazon. I've got this goal. It's a lofty goal, but I've got a goal of getting to 100 reviews by the end of October. We're a third of the way there pretty much. We've got 33 last I saw. If we can get to 100, that is huge. And what it does is it will say to publishers that, do you know what? People from the UK can write books about the NFL and people are interested. Maybe you should publish some more. Maybe other people should get opportunities and it isn't just me. So please leave a review on Amazon. It makes the world of difference, not just to me, but for everyone who's going to come after me.
It does. I'm looking at the reviews now. There are some names I recognize, which is always good. Yes, but definitely do. I couldn't agree more. You've definitely got to do that. And you've definitely got to write a review. If you have the opportunity, please do. But yeah, just get involved. It's a phenomenal book. for any fan of the NFL. Ben's a phenomenal bloke. You also catch him on Nat Coos podcast. You're a big college fan. In fact, you're doing a great social thing at the moment. That's why you've got to follow Ben. We've been robbed of college football here in the UK quite significantly this year. There's a lot of people very unhappy about it. And you are doing the good service of telling all fans where they can watch games. So if you don't like books,
yeah, exactly. Follow me on a Saturday and just watch college football. Now, like, here's the thing, right? I'm giving you links of where to watch college games for free, right? Now, the only reason I'm doing that is because nobody will let me pay for it. Now, I'd be happy to pay for it on ESPN Player or BT Sport. Those options have been taken off the table. The only thing that you can pay for is pay for Sky Sports, and you can watch Notre Dame home games. However, Notre Dame also stream those games for free anyway outside America. So you could sign up to the Notre Dame, I think it's called fightingirish.tv or something, and you could stream those home games for free. Everything else, like, I'm not going to ever say on a Sunday, oh, here's how to watch this game for free. No, because there's an option. You can pay and you can watch the NFL. You can get Game Pass. You can get Sky. But for college, we've had the option taken away. So on a Saturday, as the evening goes on, I will say, here's a good game to watch. Here's the link to watch it. And that includes College Game Day. I kind of try and take you through from 3 p.m. until the night. And usually I'm up early for my daughter's football team that I've got to drive to wherever for that. So I'm generally not watching games at 1 or 2 a.m. Someone will have to take over there. But it's something I feel strongly about. I want people to be able to have the opportunity to watch college football. I'm never going to give you a free link to something that you can buy. But if they are going to refuse to sell it to us, then I'll find a place that we can just watch it and we can talk about it.
Yeah, it's a great thing that you do, because it is keeping it's keeping college football alive. It was just starting to grow. They just started bringing a game over to Ireland every year. And now they're at risk of setting this back 10 years if they don't solve this. Hopefully it's a 1-year glitch. But appreciate the good work you do there. Appreciate all the work you do. Please follow Ben. Please buy the book. If you've bought the book, please leave a review on Amazon. Please, please, please do it as a favor to me, if not a favor to Ben, because we want to see more NFL books get published. As a person who reads a lot of books, I want to see more content out there. So, Ben, thank you so much for coming on. We'll get you on again soon. Maybe we'll talk some college. Florida are ranked, which is just stupid. I don't know who's ranking Florida because we're rubbish, but we'll take the 1 week that we're ranked at 25. So heavens alive. It's a good week. Heading into week 3, the season is absolutely storming along. Please do follow all of our writers, all of our guests, everybody. Please do. Please leave a review for this show. Don't ask for it that often. Also, this show was brought to you by Manscaped. Told you about the beard trimmer and how great it is. There is the Lawnmower 4.0. You can buy all their products over at manscaped.com or manscaped.co.uk. Free international shipping. Use the code 5yard. Get 20% off with free global shipping as well. So please do that. Follow the Patreon, patreon.com/5yardrush, and get the exclusive podcasts and all the work over there that we do. So from Ben, from I, thank you very much for tuning in. Looking forward to catching up with you tomorrow with a matchup show and all the fantasy stuff I'll be producing will be out a bit later, but it'll be out tomorrow. Until then, as always, Rush Nation, don't forget, keep rushing.